Let's all stand and say the pledge, please.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
States of America, and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation of God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Mrs. Fryrick,
Here.
Mr. Posnell,
Here?
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Scalette,
Here.
Mrs. Schrader,
Here.
Mr. Sears,
Here.
Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Tillman,
Okay. Thank you. First thing is kind of a housekeeping thing. We've got a policy in place that I would recommend that we suspend the rules that require a second reading of a policy before board adoption for the recommended revision of the following policy. That's the policy 006 about attendance at meetings via electronic communications. I think you've read it. It's recommended that the board temporarily suspend policy 006.1 to allow for full remote participation at meetings. Could I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments? This can be an unanimous roll call vote, I think, Kathy.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
I would remind everybody to silence your cell phones, but we may have dogs barking and phones ringing in the background anyway, so I won't. So this is the first opportunity for public comment. There is a little button for people to add comments. So all comments and questions will be addressed to the president. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the president for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the president to 5 minutes or less, which is about 750 words, depending on how you type. And with that, we have the Planning Committee meeting minutes of March 9th, 2020. And if there are no changes or corrections, I would argue that they be approved as submitted. Do we have any corrections? Okay, then I think they can be approved as submitted. And Mr. Sears.
Oh, he doesn't know that. We have the public comments available for display.
Mr. Posno, we have public comments available for display. I think we have 3 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll put those on display quickly.
Okay. Are you going to scroll? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to take time to answer questions. You can reach out off meeting for those, I think.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
This is what you're saying.
Okay.
What everyone else is saying.
Okay, everybody finished?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, except for I.
Okay, that's Jamie. Okay.
So John, these comments, public comments will be entered into the record somehow so that, yeah.
All right. Thank everybody for their public comments. And Mr. Sears.
Thank you. I did an interest estimate for the prior month of February, and it looks like it's around 99,400, so that's on track with the way we put money into CDs and so on. We have a consent agenda as usual. Would any board member like any of the items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of the items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items. So moved.
Second,
Questions or comments? And I believe this can be a unanimous roll call vote as well.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. The board met in a virtual meeting format for executive session on Tuesday, March 24th at 12 noon, as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act, for the purpose of discussing matters of personnel. No official action was taken. Dr. Williams.
Thank you. Superintendent's report. I'll be as brief as I can, but there are important things that we do need to point out during this time. During the COVID-19 crisis pandemic, we've embarked on something called forward learning. And what we're doing is the PDE is calling it continuity of education, and we're calling it forward learning because we're looking forward and we want to learn new things and deliver instruction in different ways so that we can incorporate some of these things that we're doing right now into our future lessons going forward. So these efforts are going to be perpetual. And there's some important people to recognize. It's important to recognize Mr. Vincent Henry and his staff who've been working unbelievably hard to make sure that people have the tools they need to get their jobs done. Without Mr. Henry's leadership on this, we wouldn't have things in place to help kids, and we wouldn't have this board meeting right now virtually. So it's important to recognize him and his efforts. I also like to recognize the principals who have been led by Dr. Krauser and Dr. Ketterman, who are doing a fantastic job of getting the troops moving in the right direction. Kudos to all of them for their hard work. Also like to recognize Mrs. Allie Cunningham, who's our technology integrator, who's doing a tremendous amount of work to get everybody going in the right direction. I'd also like to commend the teachers who are taking this on like you wouldn't believe. Taking it on with gusto. They're a little nervous, which is normal. I expect that. I would worry about them if they aren't nervous. But they're taking on this challenge and they're doing it with gusto. I'm very proud of them. Support staff, we've been paying them during this trying time, and legislation has come out that we will continue paying them. I want to thank the board for their efforts in that direction as well. And we've been calling some support staff in strategically to help us get forward learning up and running, and they've been a tremendous help. I also like to mention the cafeteria staff, Whitson's, who's been doing a fantastic job of feeding meals to students to date. We have 3,417 student lunches and 62 adult lunches that have gone out the door in the past almost a week now. We've been doing this. Started on Tuesday of last week.
Meals, so breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, meals, not lunches. It should be meals.
did you say that number again?
Yes, 3,417 for children and 62 for adults.
Thanks.
And we'll continue those efforts for the foreseeable future. It's also important to note that we've been getting reports of people congregating on our facilities, particularly athletic fields. I've asked Mr. Gerling to post those areas as no trespassing areas, and I've talked to the Spring Garden Township Police Chief, Chief Schwartz, and I've also communicated with the police chief in Spring Township to enforce those no trespassing areas. We shouldn't have students or people in general playing lacrosse on our fields, or flag football, or touch football, or tackle football, or any kind of football. We expect them to practice social distancing in any way possible, and that would fly in the face of those recommendations. So we're asking the police department to enforce those. And with all of the things that are going on right now, we're going to put on hold our conversation about grade level realignment. We've got plenty of other things that are consuming our time right now, but I promise we will get back to it because it's very important, especially for the long view. And I will post the student enrollment report with my superintendent's report. The student enrollment report is as of March 1st. Of course, as of April 1st, we don't know what that report's going to look like. But we expect some direction from PDE on that issue. And that concludes the superintendent's report. I'll move on to the item B. The administration recommends board approval of the confidential administrative disciplinary hearing agreement for student ID 1935294942996. Following a hearing conducted by board-appointed hearing officer Scott Krauser, the agreement sets forth the details of the recommendation for the student to complete a 10-day suspension from school and continue to an alternative placement for no less than 1 calendar year. The student may apply to return to York Suburban if the terms of the adjudication are met.
So we have a motion.
Second.
Do we have a motion first?
So moved.
Okay.
No, Rich moved, I thought. I'm
Rich
sorry.
moved it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. Questions or comments?
I have a question. I'm gathering, although it does not say this, that the district will be paying for this educational opportunity.
Yes.
Do we know how much it's going to cost us for the year?
I don't know that yet.
Okay.
So what happens? Well, I guess things will certainly open up by next year. So that question doesn't matter. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I have one question on the superintendent's report.
Before you ask that question, let's finish up the this one piece.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. If there are no questions on that, Kathy, I guess this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Now, Steve, you can go back.
Yes, thank you. On the students or adults going on the property, have we sent out a communication to that effect? That I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's going out today in today's parent message.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
But you have posted on the website that all fields are closed. I mean, all
We
facilities.
have, yeah.
So they should have known that.
It's not like they shouldn't have known. But
Yeah.
the piece that they don't know yet is that it's going to be enforced.
Okay.
Okay. You're still up, Tim.
All right, and today with the forward learning, we have with us today, I believe, Dr. Ellis, who can give us a rundown of how it's going in preparation for Monday.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I want to echo all the things that Tim said. There has been a tremendous amount of effort put out by a lot of different people, from leadership down to our staff, that are working really, really hard to have things in place for our students next week. I feel very fortunate at the high school. I think the high school over the course of the last couple of decades has been put in a position to already be making this step much more easily than the lower levels. So I don't want to lose recognition for the elementary teachers who are really, really looking at this very hard and how they can support our kids. But the high school staff has been building on this since really from the Classrooms for the Future grant, which is about 15 years ago to this point. They've been doing a lot of these types of things already with students, and now it's just a matter of rolling it out. The real thing we've been more focused on the most recent week is looking more at the logistics of doing it and doing it well. So just to give you a little background and context, what we're going to try to do is operate under a 2-hour delay schedule effectively. So the mornings, all the teachers will have between 8 and 10 o'clock just to sort of get their feet underneath them. It's also time that they can access additional training, because they're going to need additional training throughout the course of all of this to discover new tools, new ideas, and new activities. And then from basically 10 o'clock until about 2:30, the students will step through their schedule. So for instance, I use the example on the video. If students have Mr. Good for first period American cultures, they're getting an email from him today that says at 10 o'clock on Monday, go to this Zoom room or go to this Schoology site or go to this particular place, and we're going to interact there. And then their second period teacher is sending them that same notification to another location, the third period teacher, and so on and so forth. And the goal of the first couple days is just to make sure all the connections that are there, find out what issues we're having. It's sort of a beta test. It's also simply the opportunity for the teacher to see the kids' faces and vice versa, to rebuild some of that connection. And then really the goal from Wednesday through Friday next week is to start to dig into more traditional academic tasks. So they'll be starting to pursue more of the objectives of their content area. And we're going to continue that reflection process and continue to adapt as we need to. So I'm really excited to see what comes about. I've told the teachers that some of this stuff is going to work out really well. It's going to be really cool and exciting, and it's going to be part of their permanent repertoire as a teacher. And some of it's going to fail miserably, and that's okay. That's just part of this process of sort of building this as we go, but I'm really excited to see what they can do. I'm really proud of my teaching staff. They've been working very, very hard. I had a chance to meet with all the department chairs this morning via Zoom. And they had very few questions at that point. They're just very much ingrained in doing what they need to do to try to do this as well as they can. And I'm excited to see what they do for our kids in the next few weeks. So, and hopefully it's just a couple weeks, but I'm also confident if we do have to stay home longer than that, our teachers can give our kids a very quality educational experience here over the next 2 months if necessary. So that's all I really had to share. I'm not sure, Dr. Williams, if you had questions or other things you wanted me to speak to, or if board members had questions, but thanks for all your support through all this process and getting the governance aspects in place so we can continue to do this for our kids. Thank you.
Dr. Williams, what grades are covered by this?
All grades are covered by this, but a Monday is for secondary level. Middle
Okay.
school and high school.
So
And Wednesday
everybody
is
will
for
kick
elementary.
off on Wednesday.
I'm sorry?
All grades will kick off on Wednesday.
Yeah, everybody will be involved on Wednesday. That's correct. Do we have any questions for Brian?
Do we know how many students do not have internet or connectivity for whom this will present problems?
It's very
Well,
low at the high school
About
level.
95% of our families reported that they do have Wi-Fi at home. We do have a small percentage that we're working with right now to try to make, get them internet. One of the things we're trying to point out, and might as well go on record here, is Xfinity has actually unlocked all of their hotspots. So if people actually have an Xfinity brand router, if you're renting your home router from Comcast, that's open to other people now, not on your home network, but there's a separate network on there that's available. So we're hoping that a lot of the people that do not have internet access at home can pick it up from those neighbors. And additionally, we're working with other scenarios and providing devices for people who do not have them at home.
Thank you.
Vince, I want to ask a question. Really, when we talk about a Zoom connection with, say, 25 or 30 people attending one of these sessions,
Okay. If you're receiving this message, you need permission. When you try to access the survey, you're actually logged into your browser with a Gmail account, or it might even be one of your children or another family member that's logged in on that computer. What we need to do is switch accounts to your school district account. To do that in Chrome, up here at the top,
Taking care of a little business.
or little icon, a picture of a little shadow.
you did it. It's your voice.
That's right. Hey, what do we say?
What was
There's
the
gonna be
question?
mistakes made. It's gonna
We're
happen.
going to have a few little glitches.
Well, we'll have Zoom connections, potentially dozens going at the same time, with say up to 20 or 25 participants in each one of the virtual classes. Is this a relatively low bandwidth type application? Is there an option to cut back the bandwidth requirements?
Well, Zoom is managing that. None of this is happening within the district at all.
Right.
Any Zoom traffic doesn't happen to ours, and our group is rather small considering that most of the world is using Zoom. there was some stock shooting up because some people had the wrong stock that they were buying. Because it was the wrong Zoom stock.
They were not spelling it correctly.
But no, they will monitor and regulate that. It is one of the most efficient online meeting places that I've seen. So they've been doing a great job, and they've been managing all this traffic very well. We're a drop in the bucket worldwide.
Well, right now it's an ocean.
And you're saying that on Wednesday, all of the schools will be on Zoom, including kindergarten through 5th grade?
When April 1st.
That's Wednesday.
Quick question, the 95% having access, was that in response to an internet-based survey?
Yes, it is.
All right.
I mean, that being said, you know, people with cell phones and those things, we send it out as text and those things. So yes, and it does align with our previous previous surveys and things in the district as well, because that is something that we do ask at the beginning of the year. So we're generally overall district-wide over 90% even from paper surveys.
And that's one of the reasons the building level communication is going to be ramped up, so that we can isolate situations where we need to spend more energy to get connectivity going.
Obviously, if I could, in the time that we've taken to ramp this up, we started with the masses. See, I'm behind the camera, so no one can see this. We started with the masses first, and then again, we're going to get as many people as we can in, and then continue to work to meet the needs of all of our students. We know we can't meet the needs of everyone day one. In response to the Zoom sessions, there will be some Zoom sessions, but please don't think that we are taking our face-to-face classes and spending the day with every child on Zoom. Initially, parent or teachers, especially just to bring the classes back together, let the students interact with each other, and with the parent or teachers, we are doing more in the way of Zoom, just again, for that social emotional, bringing people together and kind of chatting about the technology. But this is in no way going to be sit in a Zoom session all day.
So for the young kids, I know, we have a kindergartner who does not have a Chromebook. Are you going to be sending out a similar email saying you can come in at certain times to pick it up for the lower grades?
That went out.
We did send out a survey to all families in the district and asked them if they had devices for their children at home, and if they didn't, then we sent them a notice to come pick up machines, and we've been distributing them for the last couple days.
For the kindergarten through 5th grade, right?
Kindergarten through 5th grade, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So then if I could ask, so then I guess that means if the family has a computer and you have 2 children, then one of the children can access via the Chromebook that they've been issued from the school. I'm talking elementary grades.
Correct. One of the questions we did in our survey asked if every child in your family would be able to be online at the same time.
Right.
If you responded no to that question, then we reached out to get you a device.
Right. Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Was that it for you, Kim?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ellis. Thank you, Mr. Posnow.
Thank you. Ms. Chichuli.
Okay, the first item I have under the business office report is a resolution that the administration is recommending to the board for approval. The resolution covers several items and is there for your viewing. First, it covers future meetings and suspending the rules to policy 003 and 0061.1. as we did today. It also gives the administration the authorization to handle the day-to-day operations that would normally be discussed with the board due to the COVID-19 issues.
So do we have a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? I have one, the last piece of it where we talk about hiring. Is this hiring that the board has already approved positions for so that nothing's coming that's not budgeted or planned for?
Correct. So it would be anything that was either a vacancy or included in a 1920 budget for hiring. Anything that has been proposed for the 2021 won't be done until we've received board approval for the budget.
Okay, got it.
So by its nature then, this is a resolution that covers just this period of time in our lives, right? As long as the pandemic is with us.
That is correct.
Okay.
Will we have to act to dissolve this resolution once this is over?
Probably so.
I will have to check with Brooke, our solicitor. Let me do that and report back to the board.
It may be just an announcement from Harrisburg that this is over. I'm just curious about that. I'd be
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
if we need to repeal it, we'll repeal it when the time comes.
right. Thank you.
We'll get some direction from the solicitor on that.
Yeah, because if you read the first opening sentence, motion to authorize the response in the governor's order closure of public schools, you know, due to the COVID-19, once he says we're not closed,
Right.
This-
It's implied,
it is implied.
Right.
but it's not solid.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Legitimate concern.
Other questions? I'm sensing agreement, so I guess this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Second item is a consent agenda. You have before you the business office report, which includes items A through D. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items?
I have a question on B3.
Yes.
And just, could you give us the Cliff Notes version of that? That's a 95-page resolution.
It's a 95-page resolution regarding the refunding of the bonds that we issued.
What is the implication of that?
It sets the interest rate for the state to reimburse the
Okay,
district.
that's all I need to know.
That sounds like a cliff note.
Excuse me.
Any other questions?
I'm assuming that the PASBO survey will be the same price whether we do it now or 6 months from now or whenever.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I would ask that a motion be made to approve the below mentioned items.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional questions or comments? Then I think this can be a short roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay. And I guess that's it for you. Tim, do you have something from our student rep?
I do not. I do not have something from Sophia today.
Okay, then moving on, the committee meeting schedule is posted online such that it is. Mr. Robinson, personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Posnow. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Very good. You have before you the personnel report, which includes resignation, employment, leave of absence, and volunteers. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Questions, comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote, I think.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And before I conclude my report, I would like to offer my congratulations to Dr. Snedden, who's now Dr. Snedden, and also defer to him for an introduction of a new member of the middle school staff.
Okay.
Dr. Snedden.
Well, thank you so much. I definitely, this has been a unique transition, but I am thrilled to be able to welcome Betsy Bedell to the middle school. She's been historically here at the district, and she's a wealth of knowledge that I'm looking forward to tap into for the middle school. It's going to be a great fit, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming her to the middle school. And so I'm going to let her actually introduce herself a little bit.
Hey, Betsy.
Thank you. Thanks. Teaching English for York Suburban has been one of the greatest joys of my life. I've been honored to serve the district in that capacity. I'm so excited to move forward and to continue to serve the students and community of York Suburban, to work with Dr. Snedden and with the rest of the administrators. It's a very exciting time in education right now, and I'm looking forward to the challenges that we're facing. So thank you. Thank you.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank
Betsy,
you.
how long have you been with the district now?
17 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And you picked a great time to step into the breach.
Yes, lots of new stuff going on.
That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sears, Property and Finance.
Thank you. The minutes of February 5th are provided. They're available hard copy at the business office, and they're linked to the online agenda for anybody other than school board members today. Property and Finance Committee met on March 11th at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. We received a presentation from Public Financial Management, Inc., otherwise known as PFM. They are proposing to assist the district as an independent financial advisor, not an underwriter, to help us optimize our long-term financing. We discussed the pool filter replacement. Recommendation from committee was to repair the filter at a cost of $41,000 versus replacing for $70,000, noting that any new filter installation would not be reusable due to physical constraints. We discussed the athletic field concrete stair replacement proposals. Phase 1 had been completed at a cost of $3,500 by New Tech. Phases 2 and 3 would purchase for us bid administration and oversight on the construction itself. Phase 2 and 3 cost is $16,700. There was a discussion of the estimated total construction cost at around $120,000.
No, it is.
Mr. Chuli gave us an update on the budget, and if I got the numbers correctly, we are still facing about a $900,000 deficit
After use of fund balance,
after use of fund balance.
and that would be also include an increase to the index. So without the index, it's 3.5.
Correct. 3.5 is where we began. She admonished us to consider the following: a tax increase with a maximum of 3.1, balance, personnel adjustments, class sizes, and grade realignment. Those are the factors that really drive this, the primary portion of the budget, which is, as we all know, personnel. We adjourned at 7 o'clock. The next meeting was originally set for April 8th, and we're not quite sure at this point when or how it will take place.
Even though when I look at the settings, it said it should, which meant it wasn't.
That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you.
I couldn't have that.
Legislative updates, Mr. Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Posnow. As you may imagine, all the legislative breakfasts and meetings that were mentioned in previous meetings have been canceled. To the best of my knowledge, the real hot action up in Harrisburg, pardon me, is passage of Senate Bill 751 with various and sundry provisions governing the forward motion of the school year. They're, as I said, they're numerous. I believe you all have access to them, so I won't go into them now, unless anybody so desires. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Ferrari?
The LIU JOA meeting was canceled. I don't have any further information from the intermediate unit except what you've been reading in the daily editions from PSBA about how they will be working. All 29 intermediate units are standing by to help the districts. And if you go to my York Adams Academy report, we sent our students home on Friday, the 13th of March, with work that they could work on, figuring it would cover at least a month worth of work. They were allowed to take some computers and other information home that they normally are not permitted to do. And staff is trying to keep in touch with some of them to try and keep them on track. But I guess time will only tell when we return how far they've gotten. But we have, we did send them home with some work in anticipation. Some of them might like to continue to work so that they could graduate as planned this year. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. York Adams Tax Bureau.
No report.
Well, thank you. York County School of Technology.
Yes, thanks, John. Our meeting was canceled, as you would expect, but I did get some correspondence that I thought the board would be interested in, and that is the school construction. As you remember, we're building a gym at the School of Technology, and school construction is not considered an essential activity under this closure. So they have had to shut down construction, and they're a little bit worried about that and what that will mean to the finished date. So they have appealed and are awaiting a ruling on that appeal. But right now things are at a standstill. But they're doing a good job of relaying that information via email, and hopefully things can be up and running before too long. That concludes my report.
Thank you. There is a link to the calendar online, so you can follow everything that's being canceled, I suppose. And thank everybody for sitting in on a Zoom meeting. Have we gotten any more public comment? Because this would be the opportunity for us to see it.
Yeah, let's see what we have. No additional. I need
No additional.
No additional.
no additional comments.
Okay.
Hey, John, can I ask a question before we close?
Sure.
Is it anticipated, have we given any thought to doing committees via Zoom if this drags on?
I think we'll have to, because some of them, like property finance, has got to move on. We've got some guidelines coming.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't know if that was something that needed to be discussed as a board before we adjourn or not. That's why I'm bringing it up.
I would assume they would just create a meeting and we would be invited.
Okay. And my second question is to Dr. Williams. I suppose, given the big shoes that Mrs. Bedell is now leaving empty at the high school, we will be posting that position in short order?
Yes. I think we may have already posted it as anticipated.
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks.
If we can change that to, yeah, it's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Any last minute questions or comments? Then I think we can be adjourned.